On October 19th, 2005, Saddam Hussein, the once untouchable dictator of Iraq, sat in a defendant's chair, facing judgment for the first time in his life. For decades, he ruled Iraq with an iron fist. His word was law, his enemies disappeared, and his power seemed eternal. But now, in a Baghdad courtroom, surrounded by his former victims, he was no longer the feared leader. He was simply the accused. The charges Saddam's trial was not just about one man. It was about decades of brutality. The Iraqi Special Tribunal charged him with crimes against humanity, focusing on one key event: the 1982 Dujail massacre, where 148 Shiite villagers were executed after an assassination attempt on Saddam's convoy. Families were arrested, tortured, and exiled, including women and children. This was just one of his many atrocities, but it became the case that would define his fate. Saddam in court, defiant to the end. From the very start, Saddam treated the trial as a farce. He refused to recognize the court, claiming it was a puppet of the US occupation. He mocked the judges, shouted at prosecutors, and at one point refused to even show up. When witnesses described the horrors they endured under his rule, he laughed. But the evidence was overwhelming. Documents, testimonies, mass graves, each proof of his guilt. After a chaotic year-long trial, on November 5, 2006, the verdict was read: death by hanging. The once invincible Saddam Hussein shouted defiantly as the judge delivered his sentence. His supporters called it a political execution, but for many Iraqis, it was long overdue justice. The execution, the dictator's last moments. At dawn on December 30th, 2006, Saddam Hussein was led to the gallows. Dressed in a black coat, with a noose placed around his neck, he refused a hood. He smiled and recited prayers, but as the executioners taunted him, he answered back with defiance. In his final seconds, his body dropped, and Saddam Hussein was dead. Saddam's execution marked the end of an era, but it did not bring peace. His trial remains controversial. Some see it as justice, others as victor's revenge. Iraq fell into years of sectarian violence. His death did not unite the country. Yet, for the countless victims of his rule, the trial of Saddam Hussein was a moment in history where the dictator became the judged.